Hello, welcome back to Sure Things. I'm Mary Polchaninoff, and it's good to be back after I took a little bit of a break. As you can tell, we're in the holiday season. Holiday season means time when you're gathering with your family and friends, which helps bring me to today's topic as we gather around that table and talk about our family and our memories. Today's guest, Marcy Fuller, is a professional genealogist, so today we're going to learn more about families and how to research. Welcome, Marcy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. I really was thinking about that, the holiday season, right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets together. Some
That's
good,
true, yes.
Some good, some bad, right? You have to have all those relatives you don't normally see. But I'm so curious about your background and what made you interested in genealogy.
I seem to be the designated child that inherited all the household things from my great aunts when they all passed. And eventually, when I got time, after my kids got a little older, I started looking at it, and I was amazed to find all this genealogy information because they had joined the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution. Yeah. And that just kind of piqued my interest. So I had bought a program for my little computer back then, and I started filling in all the blanks on the tree, and it just went from there.
And when as you were growing up, did these aunts share anything with you, or was this all really new information?
They shared it with my mother, I believe,
okay. Yeah.
Because she was interested in the DAR. But I had never really known much about it.
And that wasn't your background?
No.
No, it just happened. And you mentioned earlier that you went and you actually researched and got a certificate in this, in genealogy.
Yes, I attended to Boston University.
Yeah.
They have a certificate course you can take there for genealogy, and it's very thorough.
Yeah. How many years would you say you've been doing it?
Oh, I've probably been doing this for 30 years now.
30 years.
Yes.
So in 30 years, you've seen a lot of changes too, coming about.
Yes, you used to have to go to a town hall and look up the records manually, or go to a historical society or places like that and find these records.
Yeah.
Now you can just sit at your computer and find most of them.
And you find most of them.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what was the most interesting find that you actually learned about your family?
I pretty much knew everything, but I was really thrilled when I found the actual document of my fifth great-grandfather's apprenticeship papers, that he was going to be a clockmaker, and that was in Scotland. I located that, and that was a big thrill, because up until that point it kind of just been a family story,
right? That
he was a clockmaker from Scotland, but
and to find an artifact like that. That wouldn't be in a church per se, right? Because usually they say, look at the churches, they'll have a lot of the documents with baptisms and marriages, but how would you find something going way back like that? Would it be like in a town hall?
Yes, it wasn't called a town hall in Scotland. I forget the name of it, but there was an archive center.
And they had
yes.
Oh, that had to be fascinating.
Yes.
Do you make copies of that then, so you have them in your file?
Oh, yes, I have copies.
Yeah.
But those are the things you look for when you're trying to develop your family tree and go back further and further. You can't just find one record and say, oh, this is him. You need to clarify it and make sure that it matches with everything, with a birth certificate, and a marriage certificate, a death certificate, and see that all these dates and names match up properly.
And that's got to be difficult, because I would think at some point when you were looking way back, there might be inaccuracies when things are recorded.
Because there was no dedicated way of spelling your name even.
Right.
And so you could have it with an I or an IE or just with an E, and everything was different. So you had to be sure you had the right family that you were seeking. And it helps if you have a very unusual name. If you're Bob Smith, good luck.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I know we'll talk a little later about the 23andMe, but my husband has, Polchaninoff isn't very common, and so we do have different experiences when we look at some of the results we get and the numbers we get, because it is different.
It certainly is.
So with your genealogy, you've got your certification, and were you using it mainly just for yourself to find out more about your family? when you
I just wanted to, I've been doing it a long time by the time I went and got my certificate, but I wanted to see if there was anything new I could learn or new ways of searching and that. And then when I did help people finally, I wanted to just be able to say I was a professional genealogist, you know, not that I was just someone with a lot of experience. So it was just for my own personal reasons I actually sought that.
Did you find out a lot more information when you took the program?
I did.
You did.
Taking the program was the hardest thing because I'd never done an online class before.
Okay.
That was a hurdle for me. Not the genealogy program, but just...
No, there are a lot of hurdles on those, right? Time management being one, but yes, that's great though. But now, so now you volunteer.
Yes, I once a month at the Westbrook Library. It's the fourth Tuesday of the month from 6 to 8 in the evening. I volunteer there. I just go, and if anyone shows up, that's good. I'll help them with any questions they might have, or if they're new and just want to know how to get started, or how to use Ancestry, how to build their tree, where to look for things, or if they've been doing it a while but they've reached a brick wall and they're stuck and they can't get past a certain point. I'll try to help them with that because you know, I want everyone to be able to enjoy this hobby.
Oh, it's fascinating, and I know we shared a bit with my older sister when she got into it. She could spend hours, and it was fascinating because you go back and then you want to see if you can actually find more documentation to support whatever you've learned.
Yes, and nowadays there are thousands, literally thousands of websites where you can look to find the records you're after.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are specifically for certain ethnicities. If you're Italian, you can look at this here, or if you're Jewish, they have special records, and so it can be helpful that way. But there's just so many sites.
So that's interesting you said that, because I did come across an Italian site, but I wasn't sure how valid those were. But have you found for certain parts of the population that the different websites actually can help them?
It helps if you speak and read that language also.
Okay, that was my
yes.
question.
But because you're going to an Italian website,
right,
and they'll have all what you're looking for, but you have to be able to understand it also. And you can print out a cheat sheet which tells you the main things, like marriage in Italian would be this, or if you're looking at a birth certificate, it'll say your father and mother. You'll understand. You'll be able to spot those words. So there's ways around it, but yeah, it's helpful if you know the language.
Well, that's an interesting idea just right there. That it must be with all your research that you think of these shortcut ways to make sure you can get through the archives. What have you found, or maybe you haven't found a particular one, but when somebody goes into a town or they go into a state knowing they want to find some information, where do you usually suggest they start?
If they're looking for the actual, not online, but in person in towns, you go to the town hall.
Town hall.
Because they'll have all births, marriage, and death records there.
And then, because I know a lot of people say the church.
Church has
some too.
For older records, when you're getting into colonial times, the church has a lot of the marriage, death, and birth records.
Do you have an interesting story that goes with the DAR?
Gee, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, as far as what your connection was with who was in the revolution.
Oh, I have my personal ancestry. It's very colonial New England, so mine's pretty easy when it comes to searching. I don't have to cross the pond and get into different languages and all that. So,
what's the earliest you go back in colonial America?
1635. It was a few ships after the Mayflower.
A few ships after, and where did they land? Where did they end up?
In Boston, in that area, yes. And he was a prisoner, actually. He was from Scotland. He'd been captured in a battle, and he was sent here as a slave.
Really?
He was
because he was a prisoner.
Slave. Yep, he was a prisoner. So they sent him to Saugus, Massachusetts, to work in the iron mines.
Wow.
Yes.
And that was, can I ask what the last name was? Or
that was Law.
Law, okay. Oh, we had McAllister, that's why I was wondering. Yeah. We did the Scottish thing too, which was so interesting. So are you in touch with a lot of your relatives?
I am.
Found through this?
Mostly they contact me when they have a question about something.
Okay.
And they go, Ask Marcy, she'll know.
And do you keep a family archive then?
Oh, I do. I have a whole room in my house just filled. I like the paper copies also. I don't want it just all on my computer. So I keep paper copies of things, and I love death certificates. I like to get those because they explain what the person died from. And if you notice that in the same line, they're all dying from the same thing, you know, you can create medical family trees, which can give you an idea of where you might be headed. You know, if you know you have a congenital heart issue in this one line, you can prepare yourself and get checked out ahead of time.
And that is all just paper and pencil. That's all paper and research. Yeah. And then you move into where now, as you mentioned, on the computer, we have so many sites.
Yes.
And so many ways to research.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you know your ancestor was in the military,
yes.
There's a special website called Fold 3, and that has, you can find their medical, their military records there.
And it's called FOLD?
Fold 3. Of course, you have to pay to use it.
Yeah.
A lot of these you have to pay. There's Find a Grave, which is interesting.
I have heard of that one.
That if you know your family lived in a certain state and their name and what year roughly, you can put a date range in and search, and could find, if you find them there and you look at that cemetery, you might find a whole family all buried there and find new relatives that way.
How far have you traveled to find out information? You mentioned your cemetery, so I wonder how far have you traveled?
I've been to Scotland and Germany. That's where my foreign relatives are from.
Right.
But most of them are from England years and years ago. So it's all mostly Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont.
I just think that's awesome. And what a legacy you leave for your children and grandchildren, because they'll always be able to look back and know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a hobby that never ends, because you can just go, you know, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great. But there's also all the brothers and sisters, and you branch out into all these other families, and it just goes forever.
It does, yeah. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about that 23andMe.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Product shortages and increased online shopping could create the perfect opportunity for scammers this holiday season as desperate shoppers turn to shady websites in hopes of finding this year's must-have gift. BBB recommends the following tips to shop safe and shop smart this holiday season. Research before you buy. Go to bbb.org and read customer complaints and reviews. Also do an internet search of the seller with the words complaint and scam. If the deal looks too good to be true, it probably is. The top motivating factor for people who made a purchase and lost money last year was the price. Beware of fake websites. Check the URL, watch for bad grammar, and look for working contact information. Also make sure there's a small lock icon on the address bar and HTTPS in the URL. The extra S is for secure. Beware of making quick purchases while scrolling through social media. Scammers have access to tools to learn about your buying behaviors and offer exactly what you want at enticingly low prices. Always pay with a credit card. It's easier to dispute a transaction and get your money back than with any other method of payment. For more holiday tips from Better Business Bureau, go to bbb.org/holiday.
Hi, welcome back to Sure Things. Today's guest, Marcy Fuller, is filling us in on genealogy, as that's your background. And we had just been talking about sources that you use.
Yes, another great source is newspapers.com, and that's just one. There's other newspaper websites that you could access, but the things you find there are so unexpected. Of course, you'll find wedding announcements and obituaries, which are always helpful because the obituaries, they'll list all the other relatives, who they leave behind and who their parents were, and they're very useful. But you'll find stories about, you're looking for your Uncle Jack Smith, and he was a farmer up in Oshkosh or something, and you find a story about how his mule got away from him and it tipped over, and all the stories, it's just silly stories. And you'll find stories about, you know, Aunt Catherine is now visiting with her family in this city or something, and how they're traveling, you know. And somebody just returned from a trip. It lists these other personal life story things
that you can find.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a story to go along with that. So in our family background, my mom lived in the city, in New York City, and her mom unfortunately passed away. She had been caught in a fire and passed. And my sister, who was doing all the research, it just bugged her that we couldn't find this in a newspaper.
Yeah.
Because it was such a big event. You know, I mean, it was the brownstone, and it was a big thing, and she passed. Do you know that my sister finally thought about the German magazine, because they were in the German section,
yes.
and she actually found a clipping in the German newspaper about the fire.
Yep.
So you're right. That is incredible that you can go back and find out that information.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a bit about, because a lot of your work, I know the earlier work, of course, you did have computer work, but you did a lot of research. And these days we have all the DNA research. How has that changed? Have you used any of that when you're helping others to?
I had done genealogy for a long time before that became available. So, but I was curious, so I did my DNA, and I had no surprises. Everything I expected was just like it was, and relatives I knew about were all my matches, and so for me, it was very.
It just verified.
Yes.
Did you, in your experience of working with others too, have you found any one of those sites more reliable, or maybe for a certain purpose, like 23andMe versus?
Well, they're only as
Ancestry?
reliable as how many people access them.
Right.
Because that creates their database.
Yeah.
So if they have, 500,000 people, it creates a different algorithm that they can then analyze it by. Whereas if there's only 20,000, you can't get as specific.
You can't get, right.
So the most popular ones with the biggest database would be most specific.
Yeah.
But 23andMe is really good because they can go into medical stuff and other things. But probably the most popular might be just the Ancestry DNA.
Ancestry, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people do their trees up there too. And then you can share trees, which has helped the people that I've connected with. They'll say, well, do you have the tree? Connect to the tree so you can see exactly where people came from or how that tree worked. But I know we talked a bit about how you can get just diverted to different things, and it becomes like a wormhole where I've started research and you get distracted.
It's so easy to get distracted.
It is. And I just wondered, it sounds like all the resources you've worked with, it's been accurate. Are there any watch things for people with all these different sources to make sure that they're seeing an accurate site?
Most of the sites are accurate, but it's what you find that you really have to analyze. I've had to take out a whole line of my family tree because I had one person wrong. Very similar name, they lived in the same city.
Interesting.
The only thing that clued me in was they had totally different jobs. One was a chauffeur and one was a factory worker. And I could see that carried throughout the years. Right. And when I found the obituary, it said something about that he was a chauffeur. So I had the wrong person. So all his ancestors I had to take them all out.
Wow, what a case in point of checking out that
you have
information.
To be really sure. Because they were from the same town, they're about the same age, and they had the same name. So you think, oh, this has to be him.
Right.
Not necessarily.
Right, that's hard. It's when I talk about the Scottish side, and we had the McAllisters, and we had to be really careful too, looking over. We have our lines so we can look, but we did a trip to Scotland to just look at some of the information we could find about the McAllisters, and we did stay with a family, but they weren't the same line. And the man, I'll never forget, the man actually had a rolled up piece of paper that he actually just flung out on the floor.
Yeah.
This is the lineage, and he had it all the way down.
That's impressive.
It was so impressive. He was quite a character, but I don't think we quite tied to that.
Yeah.
And we had talked earlier too how far back is really, I was telling you I can't go back third or fourth cousins on any of these websites on 23andMe Ancestry. I can't find the connection.
Right. You have to go back to your third or fourth great grandparent.
Yeah.
And then look at all their siblings and see who they married, and then see who those children all married, and see who those children all married before you get down to third and fourth. It's a task.
Has there been anybody that has come in that had a real aha moment with you that they were looking for information or a piece of information, you were able to help them with that?
Yeah, one gal, she just was looking for her mother, and she couldn't find her, and I found her in like 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, was she adopted? Was this the adopted
Well,
person?
she had remarried, so had a different name.
Oh. Well, that's another big factor, right?
But then I found the obituary for her also.
Oh.
So that was disappointing. But at least now she knew where her mother.
Right, what closure you have.
Yeah.
To have that, wow. But I think it's an interesting resource that people can come in. Now, you're at the Westbrook Library, not particularly for any resource they might have, but that's, I mean, I'm just wondering, do the libraries have you found libraries in the area?
The old Saybrook Library, Acton Library,
Yeah.
they have a genealogy club.
Oh, they do, okay.
And it meets every month. We've just been, since COVID, it has stayed online via Zoom. And every other week, it's a little different. We have someone from the library that hosts it, and the next week, we just have the members that just get together and chit-chat about things, and we help each other try to solve problems. And
so as a member of the club, do you have discussions or presentations on perhaps different ways to research?
Yes.
Oh, that has to be interesting.
One for the DNA, it was called a leads chart, and it was a way to get your matches and put them in this chart and to figure out who's related on your father's side, so who's related on your mother's side, and it helps you organize your matches, and that's a really helpful thing. That's what they discussed one time. So yeah,
you're learning with that.
How to use other programs or other programs that might help keep you organized, because you collect so much information, you got to keep it organized. And things like that.
How many people are in the group about?
There's about 8 that join in each week.
Yeah, that join in each week, yeah.
And there's no requirements. You can just join in, just contact the library. They'll give you the access codes.
Right.
And you could be brand new or a professional, and we all help each other out.
There's so many. It's interesting because, as I said, with the holidays, I'm sure people have questions around the table as well. How do you deal with, you mentioned about like the Army one that you have to pay to subscribe. Yeah, there's so many you have to pay for.
Yes.
How do you yourself delineate which ones you're going to put your funds to?
Some are specific. Some are more European websites. So I don't have that many ancestors in Europe, so I might not join that one. Or there's special ones if you're Jewish, you want to find the better Jewish websites. You can, pick and choose which ones you want. They all have a specific interest.
How many would you say you subscribe to?
Oh, probably 5.
Oh, 5. Okay, so
That's not too bad.
Okay, not too bad. Was the German one obviously, was it in German? The German.
Well, I'm lucky to have a stepdaughter who lives in Germany and is German, so she helps me with a lot of things there.
Okay, on that part there.
Yeah. But there are free websites which the Church of Latter-day Saints or the Mormons coordinate. It's called FamilySearch.org.
Okay.
Which is free and anyone can access it. They ask you to join it, but it's just they want to know who's using their site. You don't have to pay or give them your credit card.
And that has quite a bit of information.
That has loads of it, more information than Ancestry has.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a ton. I mean, and it's sorted well. You can go right in and say, I'm looking for my Jewish genealogy, and you can go right to it in the index and find it. And that's all free. So that's helpful. And then there's the government one. There's NARA. That's let me find it. The National Archives Records Administration.
And those are good. That's a good one too.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have all kinds of records.
Yeah. I think, what I think I'll do is if you just want to give me a list of some of these sites, what I'll make sure is I type them up and I'll put them, when we upload the video, I'll make sure I have a little resource there.
Okay.
Because I think that would be interesting for people to, I know myself I'm going to look at the Army one because I have so many questions on some of the information that I have on my family too, which is great. I really appreciate that we've had this chance to do this.
And even though you have all this information online, it's nice to have your own program on your own computer and to keep track of it. And there's several types. The 2 most popular are Roots Magic and Family Tree Maker. And they even connect with the internet to search, like family tree will have hints and it'll tell you on here, but it's your own private, on your own computer, your own, and you can print all kinds of reports from those.
Really?
Yes, you can print Ahnentafels, which is like a descendants chart.
Right.
You can print the ancestry tree charts. You can print family charts, individual profile pages.
I can
all
tell.
kinds of
I can tell
things.
this is a passion for you too, Marcy. You
can.
And that's good. I mean, it's such a big resource for people.
Yes, I
that
love
have
it.
these questions. Well, I want to thank you very much. And again, you're at the Westbrook Library, the 4th Tuesday.
Yes.
Of the month.
Yes.
And people don't have to sign up.
They don't have to.
They can just stop in.
But if too many come in, it's hard for me to help
Right.
too many people
But
at
you
once.
know, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Well, I want to thank you very much for being with us here today.
entirely welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for tuning in today. Please remember to ask me any questions at surethingsct@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your questions, and certainly if you have any for Marcy, I'll pass them along. Until next time, stay healthy and happy, and take care. Bye-bye.